Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into my channel. I'm Kidest. This video is a part of a series of videos that I'll be offering on evolving your consciousness. I'll be using David Hawkins' scale of consciousness to highlight and spotlight each of the levels above 200. Now, above 200 on David Hawkins' scale is where you move into true power. It's where you move into accessing more life energy, more empowerment, more alignment, more flow. And for deliberate creators, this is the state, these are the levels of consciousness that allow you to stay into the receptive mode, that allow you to, day in and day out, remain in states of receptivity. It's a really useful map to make use of in your personal development and spiritual growth journey, because David Hawkins does such an incredible job of really breaking down what each of the levels demonstrates in terms of the belief systems that are there, the psychological patterns that are there, the relational patterns that are there, the patterns to, the social and cultural structures that you have in each of these levels is very well articulated and illustrated in Hawkins' work. And if you're new to the levels of consciousness, the map of consciousness, the scale of consciousness, referred to in different ways, it's a really useful outline. It's a really useful model for you to make use of in your personal development and spiritual growth journey. Now, in the videos that I'll be doing, I'll be breaking down, what you start doing in each of the levels, what you stop doing in each of the levels, what the challenges you face are in those specific levels of consciousness we're reviewing, as well as what you can do sort of psychologically, emotionally, to transcend into the next level of consciousness. Now, in your day-to-day experience, you are predominantly in a certain perspective that you hold. You have a predominant outlook on life, on yourself, on relationships, on society, and the like. And taking a look at that current outlook that you have from an objective lens really allows you to evaluate where you are currently calibrating. And you also recognize that through doing work like this, the calibration at a certain level of consciousness is something you have the power to change, because you have the ability to self-reflect, because you have the ability to update your belief systems, upgrade your current perspectives, take on new beliefs while letting go of, beliefs that calibrate lower. You can transform your entire outlook, and in doing so, allow yourself to emerge on a level of consciousness that has more life energy in it, that is more empowered, that is more connected to a higher order of reality and experience. Essentially, your level of consciousness is directly tied to the quality of your life experience, the quality of your relationship to yourself, the quality of your relationship to others, as well as the quality of your relationship to your community and sort of the universe at large, is all a reflection of the consciousness you're currently embodying. And that consciousness that you're currently embodying, which is made up of, your perceptions, your thoughts, your beliefs, your assumptions, your dominant modes of emoting, all of that is something that you have the power to transform. And that power to transform starts with your awareness of where you are. So these maps really allow you to objectively look at where you are, where you calibrate. And in doing so, you give yourself the window and the opening to shift those areas, to shift those beliefs, to shift those ways of showing up in the world that currently calibrate lower, that currently hold you in disempowered states, in states that don't serve your fulfillment, your well-being, and your well-being, not only, sort of psychologically or emotionally, but physically as well. the higher the level of your consciousness, the higher you calibrate, the more of a holistic wellness you experience in your day-to-day life. And ultimately, that's what determines the quality of life that you have. So in terms of the deliberate creation conversation that I've shared before, these levels are where you are in the receptive mode. So if you are a deliberate creator, you definitely want to be calibrating in the levels of consciousness that calibrate above 200, 300, 400, and above. Because those are the states that reflect that you are in the receptive mode. Those are the magnetic states. Those are the states that really allow you to experience your co-creative power. So we're going to start with courage, which calibrates at 200, and we're going to visit, review, and address each level so that you have a map that you can look at as often as you need to deliberately calibrate yourself in those more life-rich levels of consciousness.
So courage is the first level of consciousness that has moved out of the realm of force. What the courage level of consciousness is from Hawkins' work is the level that logs at 200. And the predominant emotion here is affirmation. And I'll elaborate on that to identify sort of the other emotions that are predominant in this level. And those emotions are feeling empowerment, feeling motivated, feeling dedicated, feeling resourceful, having a feeling of inner strength and confidence, feeling adventurous, feeling assured, feeling certain, feeling daring, feeling decisive, and feeling purposeful are all emotions you can link to this level of consciousness. Now, the process at this level, as Hawkins defines it, is empowerment. The life view is that generally life is feasible. It's doable. You kind of have an I can do it attitude about life. And the God view, the higher power view, is that this higher power is permitting. Now, courage falls in what Hawkins notes as the realm of the linear mind, and these are the levels from 200 to 500. And as we go into each of the levels, we'll go more into what he means by that. Now, 200 is where you move out of force and into true power. You've emerged and expanded out of the pressure and tension-driven levels. It's the beginning of true empowerment, a true sense of having power and agency in your personal experience and even in your community. And your predominant thoughts, feelings, and perceptions and behaviors are all connected to this sense of feeling empowered. Now we'll look at what you start doing at this level. And I want you to recognize that what you start doing is reflective of the neurological and physiological changes that you've gone through because you've shifted belief systems, because you've shifted your outlook, because you've shifted your perceptions and sort of your dominant patterns of thinking and emoting. You've changed your neurology, you've changed your physiology, you've changed sort of your micro physiological orientations and your overall neurological landscape. Anytime you emerge into a new level of consciousness, that is reflected in the body, that is reflected in the brain, that is reflected in the, the sort of hardwiring of your nervous system. So what you start doing at this level is that you start taking personal accountability. You take responsibility for your life. You take responsibility for your behaviors. You take responsibility for your psychology and your sort of emotional patterns. This is where you start taking ownership of your ability to self-regulate. You sort of get involved in your interior, your inner world, and begin to take responsibility and ownership of what's going on there, what's going on in the realm of your beliefs, your assumptions, your perceptions, your feelings, and sort of your habitual patterns of behavior. So you take personal accountability. And you also look at internal factors to get your results, meaning you look at your own inner sense of honor, your integrity. You start prioritizing your integrity, your own integrity, the alignment of, your words and actions with your values becomes a higher priority to you than short-term gains, short-term gratification. You also start reality testing at this level. This isn't something that occurs in the previous levels where, sort of cultural norms and belief systems of all kinds are just sort of accepted without question, without sort of a critical evaluation of what those belief systems, what those cultural norms are based in. So at this level, you really start reality testing and sort of critically assessing the information that's coming your way. You have a stronger psychological boundary at this level where you don't just, kind of let in beliefs and assumptions and, sort of social standards that don't necessarily resonate with the value system you've developed at this level. You test the concepts, the beliefs, and the models you encounter to directly experience for yourself their truth value, their validity, and their usefulness in your life. And this is really the beginning of trusting yourself, trusting your perceptions, trusting your sort of inner standards, and valuing them above the sort of external standards that you may be surrounded by. So at this level, you have higher confidence in yourself, you're trusting yourself, you're more aware of your capability. You have that, sort of life is feasible attitude sort of pervading different areas of your life. And it's also at this level that you have a preference for inner calm. You have evolved to a stage of psychological orientation where you value your inner peace. You value sort of your inner equilibrium, and you prefer it. You prefer having that inner state of calm. So to support that and to sort of ensure that that is sustained, you allow yourself periods of self-reflection, periods of introspection. This is usually the level where people start entertaining and taking on practices of mindfulness, practices of meditation, practices that allow them time and space to go inward, time and space to sort of get quiet within and observe and reflect on the reality of their interior. So there's a more inward orientation at this level and a more self-awareness, a higher level of self-awareness that emerges at this level that's sort of virtually absent in the previous levels. So you become aware of your own agency, both in your ability to get results in your outer environment, as well as your ability to get results by acting on your internal environment. This is also the level where you start valuing productivity, you start valuing producing things and creating things. At this level, you also rely on data, intelligence, and verifiable facts to inform your perspective. Again, you're no longer sort of just accepting, folklore and cultural stories and mythologies and the like. You're more interested in sort of data-driven information. You want the facts. You want to be able to verify the information that's coming your way. This is also the level where you start valuing progress and change. You start valuing forward movement. You even seek it out because you have that determination and that sort of forward moving focus. You look for progress and change. You're not afraid to face what change requires and what change makes visible. The way that, the sort of evolutionary impulse eventually surfaces old patterns that resonate or calibrate lower. You're not afraid of it. You embrace it. You welcome it. You may even thrive on the challenges that change poses. Now, this is also the level where you start to experience concern for others. You start to feel connected to social causes. You experience a sense of social responsibility. And this is the onset of social awareness, which is one of the levels of emotional intelligence. Now, what this change reflects is a change in the default mode network within your brain. There is better integration of the default mode circuits with other neural areas. Whereas in the previous levels below 200, you tend to only think about yourself or what others think about you. There's sort of a self-involvement. Once you emerge into the level of consciousness above 200, you start experiencing that care and concern for others. You start thinking about other people as other people rather than as just in reference to you and what they mean to you or what they could mean to you. So there are significant changes in your belief system, in your modes of thinking, in your modes of emoting, in your ways of behaving and showing up in the world at the 200 level of consciousness. It's significantly different from the levels that came before it. And these are the things you stop doing once you emerge into this level of consciousness. You stop using maladaptive strategies like control and psychological and emotional manipulation to get your way. You are so in integrity with yourself. You are in such integrity with that inner sense of honor. You no longer resort to the lower strategies of manipulation and control. At this level, you've also transcended the, sort of mental position of blaming others for your results or making excuses for why you are having the experiences you're having. You have that personal accountability really pervading all areas of your life. You take personal responsibility for your inner life and for your results. So you no longer resort to blame as a strategy for excusing yourself. You no longer point the finger and sort of create excuses for your results. So it's a different level of consciousness altogether. You aren't really engaging in patterns of thinking and feeling that are based in that sort of victim perpetrator duality, that dualistic me versus him or her or us versus them type of narrative and way of showing up. You really just stop subscribing to disempowering cultural models altogether because you've begun to value others as others. You've begun to have that concern for others. You've begun to feel that social responsibility. You really no longer subscribe to any sociocultural paradigms that are kind of dehumanizing or devaluing other human beings. You're in a different level of perspective at 200. And it's a perspective that continues to evolve and expand to sort of have that affirmative awareness of all life. This is where that starts. This is where that value for all beings, all life forms sort of really starts to flower. It starts as awareness of the value of others at this level. You also stop valuing and seeking out negative focus or negative emotions at this level. Whereas in the previous levels, you see this sort of addiction to negativity. You see this sort of over-involvement with negative emotion in the previous levels. At this level, because you value your inner calm, because you value your inner equilibrium, sort of your internal peaceful homeostasis, you don't move toward, you don't seek it out, you don't sort of gravitate toward negativity. So at this level, you start to see the dissolution of any bonds that were previously formed on negativity, bonds that were formed on gossip and blaming and attacking different people or different groups. You no longer have the emotional cord to keep you connected to those types of relational dynamics. Now, at this level, you generally just see through the falsehood of emotionalized or negatively charged rhetoric. You see the intention behind those types of demonstrations. You see through, again, that false attraction of negativity. You recognize that way of gathering people, that sort of emotional contagion of negativity, is not going to accomplish anything useful. You recognize that it's actually a destructive pattern, that it's in no way resourceful or useful for the worldview you now hold. You also stop uncritically accepting sociocultural models at this level. This is the model in which you start questioning the status quo. You start questioning that narrative of, well, this is the way it's always been done, or this is the way we've always done it. You see through that because you recognize that progress is possible, because you recognize that change is possible, that change is even inevitable. You no longer just accept the models to be, sort of self-sustaining systems. They're not. So you have that recognition at this level. Now, in your own sort of internal orientation, at this level, you stop carrying resentments. You stop carrying, again, anything that disturbs your internal equilibrium. You no longer move from impulsivity and immediate gratification. You no longer prefer short-term gains. You're sort of in for the long haul. You're in to run that marathon. You recognize that the life you're living has long-term benefits that you are willing to be patient for, that you're willing to wait for. So you really move out of that impulsivity and immediate gratification mindset and really move into a more strategic and methodical way of approaching your goals, approaching your results. And at this level, you've also deprioritized social approval. External validation and external approval don't have the same weight at this level that they do in previous levels. So there's a significant amount of both internal and relational change that you experience when you emerge onto the 200 level. Now, the challenges you still face at this level, challenges being sort of points of contraction that you still have, points of sort of psychological and emotional patterns that sort of still keep you accessing less life energy than you're capable of, are that, you fear failure at this level. Failure is kind of a big deal. You fear, or even though you welcome change, you still fear it. Your relationship to the unknown is sort of fuzzy at this level. You don't have a clearly defined sense of the higher power, or sort of the higher order universal flow. You don't have clarity for that sort of non-linear reality, because you're still in that realm of the linear mind. The unknown kind of appears to be vague or uncertain, or something that you can't quite, feel total security around. So, whether you're looking forward at a future or kind of examining the broader picture of the universe, you don't have the level of confidence you're capable of having when it comes to that greater reality. So there's still some evolving to do in that spiritual area for you if you're calibrating at 200. And the other sort of challenge at this level is, because you get so much from challenges, because you get so much juice from being challenged, you may tend to project a future of obstacles. You may tend to anticipate problems when there is no need to. And that's just a kind of aspect of this level of consciousness, and it's something that you can transcend. So when it comes to sort of deliberately calibrating and evolving yourself, you look at where in your life these descriptions apply. Where in your life does the courage level of consciousness make itself known? And where does it not? Is there any area of your life where you are still making use of psychological positions and emotional patterns that belong to the levels below 200? And if there are, you can take a look at what you need to start thinking and feeling, what you need to start believing to raise those areas of perception, to raise those sort of lower calibrating perceptual patterns to this level and above, ultimately. So deliberately expanding your consciousness is always dependent on your ability to self-reflect. And once you have that self-reflection, you've given yourself the awareness to evolve any of those areas where your belief systems and reflexive patterns are calibrating below the level in question. Now, particularly for the level of consciousness calibrating at 200 for courage, one of the really useful models that you can study and really kind of put to practice is emotional intelligence. Really working to develop all four quadrants: the self-awareness, the self-regulation, the social awareness, and the relationship management, will give you both the neurological and linguistic patterns that you need to transcend this level and move on to the next levels. Because mastering these areas, mastering your ability to be self-aware, mastering your ability to self-regulate, mastering your ability to have that social awareness and that broader connection to other human beings, and be able to manage your contact with those other human beings in healthy ways, will give you the internal resources that you need, will give you the sort of psychological and emotional resources you need to be able to stabilize in the higher levels. So emotional intelligence is a really useful model to study at this level. And there's lots of literature, lots of books that are geared at helping you develop your emotional intelligence. And with deliberate practice, like with anything, within a few months, you can recognize yourself becoming way more competent in those quadrants for emotional intelligence. And doing so will help you not only emerge, but stabilize in the levels of consciousness that follow. So that gives you an overview of the courage level of consciousness and what psycho-emotional patterns arise for integration and embodiment, and what psycho-emotional patterns are transcended. The next level of consciousness we'll be looking at is the neutrality level. So stay tuned for the continuation of the series in the levels of consciousness in upcoming posts.